My aunt said my children were too expensive, while she was already planning a vacation in a house she didn't know was mine. I remember the exact tone she used. Calm. Polite. Reasonable. That was always her strength. She never raised her voice. She never needed to. She sat across from me at the long dining table, hands folded neatly, a soft smile that made everything sound like it made sense. Tige, she said, you know how these trips are. It's just not practical this time. Bringing the kids would increase the cost for everyone. She didn't look at my children when she said it. She looked at me. Always me. As if I was the one who needed to understand the math. My son was standing beside my chair. 8 years old. Quiet. He had learned that silence early. My daughter sat with her hands in her lap, watching the adults the way children do when they are trying to understand rules that were never explained to them. I placed my hand gently over hers. I understand, I said. My voice did not change. It never does. Thank you for letting me know. My aunt nodded, satisfied, as if a problem had been solved. Around the table, no one objected. No one asked a question. Plates shifted. Glasses clinked softly. Conversation moved on, just slightly adjusted, like a current flowing around a rock that no one wanted to acknowledge. That was the pattern in my family. Decisions were made. Justifications were offered. And silence did the rest. My aunt was the organizer. The planner. The one who decided what was appropriate, what was necessary, what was too much. And apparently, this time, my children were too much. Too expensive. Too inconvenient. Too easy to remove from the equation. I smiled at my son. It's okay, I told him quietly. We'll do something else. He nodded. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask what changed. He just nodded, the way children do when they sense the answer won't be given anyway. Later that evening, after we left, I sat at my kitchen table. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that lets every word replay clearly. Too expensive. I've spent most of my adult life working with numbers. I manage high-value properties. I assess cost, value, risk. I understand what something is worth. And I understand what people think something is worth. Those two things are rarely the same. I opened my laptop. Routine. Habit. I checked my email the way I always do before the day ends. And that was when I saw it. A booking request. My beach house. A 7-day reservation. Premium rate. Full occupancy. I looked at the name on the request. Then I looked again. My aunt. She had found the property. She had selected it. She had approved the cost. Too expensive, she had said. Not when it was her decision. Not when it was something she wanted. I leaned back in my chair and read the message attached to the booking. This place is perfect for the family. Exactly what we deserve. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there for a moment, letting the sentence settle. Exactly what we deserve. I thought about my children standing beside me at that table. I thought about the way she had not looked at them. I thought about the word practical. Then I reached for my phone and called my property manager. Good evening, Ms. Monroe, he said. I saw the booking request. Yes, I replied calmly. Please proceed as usual. There was a brief pause on the other end. Would you like us to note your ownership in the reservation details? I looked at the screen again. Her name. The dates. The price she had approved without hesitation. No, I said. That won't be necessary. Another pause. Understood. I closed my laptop slowly. The house was quiet again. Still. Controlled. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the dark street. Then I said it once, softly, just to hear how it sounded when it came back. Too expensive. I woke up the next morning before the sun came up. The house was still quiet. My children were asleep down the hall, their doors slightly open the way they always left them. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, hands resting on the counter, thinking about how easily people make decisions for others when they believe there will be no consequence. Then I poured a cup of coffee and sat at the table, the same place where everything had shifted the night before. My phone lit up with a message from the family group chat. My aunt had already begun organizing the trip in detail. "I have secured a beautiful property," she wrote. "It is exactly the kind of place we should be staying in. Spacious, elegant, right on the beach." Photos followed. I recognized every angle. The wide windows facing the ocean. The long wooden deck. The pale stone kitchen I had chosen myself. She continued, "Everyone will be very comfortable. We will split the cost evenly. It is reasonable for this level of quality." Reasonable. I read that word twice. Then a third time. No one mentioned my children. No one asked if plans had changed. Instead, replies came in one by one. "Looks amazing. Great find. So excited for this." I watched the conversation build without interruption, each message reinforcing the decision that had already been made. I typed nothing. I have learned that silence is often more precise than words. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was my aunt. I answered. "Good morning, Tige," she said warmly. "I wanted to make sure you saw the property I booked." "I did," I replied. "It is very well chosen." She sounded pleased. "I thought so too. It sets the right tone for the trip." There was a pause, brief but intentional. "I hope you understand about the children," she added. "It is not personal. It is simply about keeping things manageable." I let the word settle. Manageable. "Of course," I said. "I appreciate your effort in organizing everything." She exhaled softly, relieved. "I knew you would understand. You have always been very reasonable." Reasonable. Another word that tends to mean compliant when used in the right context. "Will you still be joining us?" she asked. I looked at the calendar on the wall. The dates were already familiar. "Yes," I said calmly. "I will be there." She seemed satisfied with that answer. "Wonderful. It will be good to have everyone together." Everyone. The call ended shortly after. I placed the phone down and finished my coffee without rushing. Later that afternoon, I drove to my office. The building was quiet, glass reflecting the pale morning light. I prefer it that way. Controlled environments. Predictable systems. I sat at my desk and opened the reservation file for the property. Everything had been processed exactly as requested. Payment authorized. Access code scheduled. Staff assigned. My property manager had left a note. Guests have requested early check-in. Please confirm approval. I read the line once. Then I pressed reply. Approved, I wrote. I paused for a moment, then added, please ensure they receive full service. No details overlooked. Another pause. Then one more sentence. Do not disclose ownership under any circumstances. I sent the message and leaned back in my chair. Through the window, the city moved the way it always does. Efficient. Indifferent. People making decisions, assuming they understand the value of things. Assuming they understand the people around them. That assumption is where most mistakes begin. That evening, my daughter came into the kitchen while I was preparing dinner. She stood quietly beside me, watching the way I moved. Mom, she said softly, are we not going on the trip? I turned to her and lowered myself slightly so we were at the same level. Not this time, I said gently. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on mine. Is it because we cost too much? The question was simple. Clear. I held her gaze for a moment. No, I said. It is because sometimes people make decisions without understanding the full picture. She seemed to consider that. Will they understand later? She asked. I allowed myself a small, measured smile. Yes, I said. They will. The next few days moved quietly, almost too quietly, the kind of calm that does not come from peace but from people believing everything is already settled. I did not interrupt it. I let it continue exactly as it was. The group chat stayed active, filled with small decisions that felt large to the people making them. Room assignments. Meal preferences. Arrival times. My aunt guided each detail with the same careful tone she always used, the tone that made control sound like generosity. Let us keep things organized, she wrote one afternoon. We want this to be smooth for everyone. Smooth. I read that word and set my phone down. Later that evening, another message appeared. I have arranged for groceries to be stocked before we arrive. It will save time and keep everything efficient. Efficient. I had chosen that kitchen layout myself, down to the placement of every cabinet and every appliance. I knew exactly how that space functioned, how the light shifted in the afternoon, how the sound of the ocean carried through the open doors. And now she was describing it as if she had discovered it. As if she understood it. I did not correct her. I rarely correct people when they are building a version of reality that will not hold. Instead, I called my property manager again. Good afternoon, Ms. Monroe, he said. We have finalized the preparation schedule. Thank you, I replied. I would like one addition. Of course. I paused for a moment, considering the timing. On the day of arrival, I will be present. There was a brief silence. Understood, he said carefully. Would you like us to announce your presence to the guests? I looked at the calendar again, tracing the date with my finger. No, I said. I will handle that personally. Very good. I ended the call and leaned back in my chair. There is a difference between reacting and allowing something to unfold. Most people react. They correct, they argue, they explain. I have found that allowing people to move forward with their assumptions reveals far more. The night before the trip, my aunt called again. Her voice was lighter this time, almost celebratory. Everything is ready, she said. We will arrive tomorrow around 3 in the afternoon. I coordinated with the property manager. They assured me the house will be fully prepared. I am sure it will be, I replied. It is a very well-managed property. She laughed softly. That is exactly what I said. It shows when a place is handled professionally. Professionally. I let the word pass. I trust you will enjoy your stay, I said. There was a pause on the line, subtle but noticeable. You always have such a way of phrasing things, Tige, she said. It is one of your strengths. I did not respond to that. Compliments can be used the same way as criticism. Both are tools, depending on how they are placed. We will send photos, she continued. You should see how everything looks. Once we settle in. I look forward to it, I said. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. The house was still, the early light just beginning to filter through the windows. I dressed without rushing, choosing neutral tones, the kind that do not draw attention but hold it when needed. Down the hall, my children were awake. I could hear soft movement, the quiet rhythm of their morning routine. My son stepped into the kitchen first. Are you going somewhere today? He asked. I nodded. Yes, I said. I have something to take care of. He watched me for a moment, thoughtful. Is it about them? He asked. I considered the question. In a way, I said. It is about making sure things are understood correctly. He nodded slowly. He has always understood more than I explain. My daughter joined us a moment later, her hair still slightly unbrushed, eyes curious but calm. Will you tell us what happens? She asked. I walked over and adjusted the collar of her sweater, a small habit I have never lost. Yes, I said gently. I will. By mid-morning, I was on the road. The drive to the beach house takes just under 2 hours, depending on traffic. I know every mile of it. The gradual shift from city to open road. The air changing as you get closer to the water. The way the horizon opens just before you arrive. I kept my phone on silent, but I could see notifications lighting up the screen at intervals. Photos. Messages. Likely updates as they traveled, documenting their excitement, their arrival, their first impressions of a place they believed they had chosen. I did not open them. Not yet. Timing matters. When I reached the final stretch of road, the ocean came into view, wide and steady, unchanged by any of this. I slowed the car as I approached the entrance, the long driveway leading up to the house coming into focus. I could already see movement near the front. Cars parked. Doors open. Figures stepping out, looking around, taking in the space. My family. Already inside the story they had written. I parked at a distance and turned off the engine. For a moment, I simply sat there, watching. Then I reached for the keys, stepped out of the car, and closed the door quietly. Behind me. I walked toward the house slowly, not because I needed time, but because moments like this require precision. The gravel shifted softly under my steps. The ocean moved behind the property, steady and indifferent, the sound of it carrying just enough to fill the silence between voices. My family had already spread out across the front of the house. Suitcases near the entrance. Doors open. Someone laughing. Someone pointing toward the deck. My aunt stood near the center of it all, exactly where she always placed herself. She held her posture the same way she had at the table days before, shoulders relaxed, chin slightly raised, the expression of someone who believed everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Look at this," she said to the others, gesturing toward the wide glass doors. "This is what I meant when I said we should choose something elevated." Elevated. The word lingered in the air. I continued walking. No one noticed me at first. They were too focused on the space, on the idea of what the place represented, on the version of the story they were already telling themselves. I reached the edge of the driveway and paused for a moment, just outside the main path. From there, I could see inside through the open doors. The kitchen lights were on. The counters were set. Fresh flowers placed exactly where I had instructed them to be. Everything in order. Everything ready. Just as it should be. A man in a navy blazer stepped out from the side entrance. One of the staff. He adjusted his sleeve, scanned the group briefly, then looked in my direction. His posture shifted immediately. Subtle, but clear. He recognized me. I gave a small nod. He approached without drawing attention. "Good afternoon, Ms. Monroe," he said quietly. "Everything has been prepared according to your specifications." I glanced past him toward the house. "I can see that," I replied. "Have they been informed of anything?" "No," he said. "As requested, your ownership has not been disclosed." I let a moment pass. "Good." He followed my gaze for a second, then lowered his voice slightly. "Would you like to be introduced now?" I considered the timing. The tone of the voices. The confidence in my aunt's posture. The way the others were already settling into their roles within the space. "Not yet," I said. "Let them settle in." He nodded once. "Of course." I stepped forward then, moving closer to the main entrance. The distance between us closed slowly, and with it, the clarity of what was about to happen. My aunt turned slightly, mid-sentence, her attention shifting just enough to notice movement. Her eyes landed on me. For a brief second, nothing changed. Recognition without context. Then her expression adjusted. Polite surprise. "Tige," she said, stepping forward with a small smile. "You made it." I inclined my head slightly. "I did." She looked past me briefly, as if expecting to see my children. When she did not, she returned her focus to me. "I did not realize you would be arriving at the same time," she said. "It worked out that way," I replied. Her smile held, but there was a small pause behind it. "Well," she continued, gesturing toward the house, "as you can see, everything is exactly as I described. It is a remarkable property." I looked at the entrance. The doors. The light moving across the floor. "Yes," I said. "It is." She seemed pleased by the agreement. "I took great care in selecting it," she added. "It is important to maintain a certain standard." Standard. Another word placed carefully. I stepped closer, just enough to cross fully into the space between them. Conversations around us quieted slightly, attention shifting without anyone explicitly acknowledging it. "You have done an excellent job organizing the trip," I said calmly. Her posture straightened just a fraction. Praise, when delivered correctly, tends to settle people into certainty. "Thank you," she replied. "I believe in doing things properly." Properly. I let the word sit between us. Then I turned my head slightly toward the staff member standing a few steps behind her. "Would you please make sure all guests are comfortable?" I said. His response was immediate. "Of course, Ms. Monroe." The title did not go unnoticed. It landed quietly, but it landed. My aunt's expression shifted, not fully, not yet, but enough. A small hesitation. A question forming. She turned her head toward him. "Ms. Monroe," she repeated, the words careful, controlled. I met her gaze. "Yes," I said evenly. Silence followed. Not complete silence. The ocean still moved. Someone inside the house set something down. But within the group, within that small circle of understanding, something had already begun to change. My aunt held my gaze for a moment longer, searching for the missing piece she had not yet placed. Then she spoke again, slower this time. "I did not realize you were involved with the property." I allowed a brief pause before answering. "I am," I said. And then I stepped forward, past her, into the house. I walked into the house without looking back. The air inside was cool, controlled, exactly the way I had set it to be. The scent of fresh linen and citrus lingered faintly, a detail most people would not notice, but one that always made a difference. Behind me, I could hear the shift. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a subtle change in tone. Conversations lowering. Movements slowing. My aunt followed a step behind, her pace measured, her voice careful. "Tige," she said, "I did not realize you had this level of involvement." I stopped near the kitchen island and turned slightly, just enough to face her without fully closing the space between us. "It is part of my work," I replied. "I manage a number of properties." She nodded once, processing. "Of course," she said. "That makes sense." Around us, the others had begun to gather, drawn in by the shift they could feel but had not yet understood. My cousin stepped closer, glancing between us. "This place is incredible," he said. "Your company manages properties like this?" I looked at him briefly. "Something like that," I said. My aunt's eyes moved across the room, taking in the details again, but this time with a different focus. The countertops. The fixtures. The arrangement of everything. Not admiration anymore. Calculation. "You have very good taste," she said carefully. "It must take a great deal of expertise to oversee something at this level." I inclined my head slightly. "It does require attention to detail," I said. The staff member entered from the side hallway, carrying a small tablet. He approached me directly. "Ms. Monroe," he said, "we have completed the final check. All guest accommodations are ready. Would you like to review the arrangements?" The room stilled. Not completely. But enough. My aunt did not speak this time. She simply watched. "No," I said. I trust everything is in order. Yes, ma'am, he replied, then stepped back. My aunt's gaze remained on me, steady now, more focused than before. You seem to have a very direct relationship with the staff, she said. Her tone was still polite, but there was something else beneath it now. Something sharper. It is important to maintain clear communication, I answered. She nodded again, slower this time. Of course, she said. That would explain the level of service. There was a pause. A longer one. The kind that invites a question without asking it directly. She took a small step closer. Tige, she said, lowering her voice slightly, when you say you manage properties like this, what exactly does that mean? I met her eyes. It means I am responsible for them, I said. The words were simple. Clear. Deliberate. She held my gaze, searching for clarification, for a boundary she could define. Responsible in what sense, she asked. I let the silence stretch just long enough. Then I reached into my bag and placed a small set of keys on the counter. The metal made a soft, distinct sound against the stone surface. Not loud, but precise. The staff member spoke again, his tone formal, professional. If there are any concerns during your stay, he said to the group, please contact Ms. Monroe directly. She is the owner of the property and has authorized all arrangements personally. No one moved. My aunt did not look at him. She did not look at the keys. She looked at me. The owner, she repeated quietly. The words did not sound the same coming back. Not as smooth. Not as controlled. I did not respond immediately. I allowed the room to settle into the meaning on its own. My cousin glanced toward the windows, then back at me, then at my aunt. Someone near the doorway shifted their weight. The air had changed. Not dramatically. But completely. My aunt's posture adjusted again, subtle. But unmistakable. The confidence was still there, but it had been repositioned. Recalculated. I see, she said finally. I was not aware. No, I said calmly. You were not. Another pause. Then she drew in a small breath, steadying herself. Well, she said, returning to a composed tone, that certainly adds context. Context. The word felt different now. I rested my hand lightly on the edge of the counter, the keys still between us. It does, I said. She glanced at them briefly, then back at me. You should have mentioned something earlier, she said. Not an accusation. Not exactly. But not neutral either. I met her gaze without shifting. You did not ask, I replied. Silence followed. This time, no one tried to fill it. The ocean moved outside. The light shifted across the floor. And in that space, the difference between assumption and reality settled in fully. No one moved for a few seconds after that. It was not confusion anymore. It was adjustment. The kind that happens when a structure you believed in shifts just enough to show you where it was never stable. My aunt was the first to recover. She always is. She straightened slightly, her expression smoothing back into something composed, something familiar. Well, she said, her voice measured, this is certainly an unexpected detail. I did not respond immediately. I let the sentence sit, the way I had let all the others sit before it. Around us, the room began to breathe again. Not fully. But enough. My cousin cleared his throat. So, you own this place? He asked, glancing between me and my aunt as if trying to confirm which version of reality he should follow. Yes, I said. I do. He let out a short laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was something to fill the space. That is impressive. My aunt did not laugh. She kept her eyes on me, steady now, more focused than before. You never mentioned this, she said again, quieter this time. Not as a challenge. As a recalculation. There are many things I do not mention unless they are relevant, I replied. She nodded once, slowly. I see. The word sounded different now. Heavier. More careful. She turned slightly, looking at the others. Then back at me. Well, she continued, this certainly simplifies certain aspects of the trip. Simplifies. I tilted my head just slightly. In what way? I asked. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. In terms of coordination, she said. It is always easier when there is a direct line of responsibility. I considered that. Yes, I said. It is. The staff member stepped forward again, sensing the shift, maintaining the structure that had been set. Would you like refreshments brought out to the deck? He asked. My aunt glanced at him, then at me. That would be lovely, she said. Then, after a brief pause, she added, if that is acceptable. The phrasing was subtle. But it had changed. I met her gaze. Of course, I said. You are guests here. Guests. The word landed clearly this time. Not harsh. Not emphasized. Just placed. She held my eyes for a moment longer, then nodded. Thank you, she said. The group began to move toward the deck, slower than before, more aware of the space, of the structure they were now inside. I remained where I was for a moment, watching the shift complete itself. My aunt lingered behind, just a step or two, as the others moved ahead. Tige, she said quietly. I turned slightly toward her. Yes? She folded her hands lightly, the same gesture she had used at the dining table days before. I hope you understand, she began, that my decisions earlier were not intended to be exclusionary in a personal sense. I let the sentence finish. They were based on practical considerations, she continued. Logistics. Budget. Group dynamics. The words were familiar. Carefully selected. I nodded once. I remember, I said. She studied my expression, searching for something. I would not want there to be any misunderstanding between us, she added. I considered her words for a moment. Then I spoke. There is no misunderstanding, I said calmly. She seemed to relax slightly at that. Just slightly. I am glad, she replied. I let a brief pause pass before continuing. You made a decision based on what you believed was appropriate, I said. And I respected that. She nodded again. Yes. Another pause. Then I added, I made decisions based on the same principle. Her expression shifted, just enough. Not confusion. Not yet. But awareness. I see, she said softly. I did not elaborate. I did not need to. Outside, I could hear the others settling onto the deck, voices quieter now, more measured, as if the space required it. The ocean moved steadily beyond them, unchanged. My aunt glanced toward the open doors, then back at me. You will be joining us? She asked. In a moment, I said. She hesitated again, then inclined her head slightly. Of course. She turned and walked toward the deck, her posture still composed, but no longer centered. I watched her go, then reached for the keys on the counter and closed my hand around them. Cool metal. Solid. Exact. Then I followed. I stepped out onto the deck and the air changed immediately, salt and sun cutting through the controlled stillness of the house, the sound of the ocean filling the space between conversations that had not yet found their rhythm again. My family was already seated, arranged in small clusters, glasses in hand, voices softer than before, as if the space required a different tone now that they understood who defined it. My aunt stood near the railing, her posture still composed, but her attention sharper, more deliberate. She turned when she heard my steps. Tige, she said, her voice measured, we were just discussing dinner arrangements. I moved toward the table, taking a seat without hesitation. Of course, I replied. What have you decided? She gestured lightly toward the others. We thought it would be best to keep things simple tonight. Something coordinated through the house. Coordinated. I nodded once. That can be arranged, I said. The staff member appeared almost immediately, as if the conversation itself had triggered his presence. Good afternoon, he said. Would you like me to prepare the chef's tasting menu for this evening? My aunt glanced at him, then at me. That sounds appropriate, she said carefully. If that is acceptable. Acceptable. The word did not go unnoticed. It is, I said. Please proceed. He inclined his head. Yes, Ms. Monroe. The title settled into the air again, quieter this time, but no less precise. My cousin shifted in his seat, leaning forward slightly. This place really is something, he said. I mean, I knew it would be nice, but this, he let the sentence trail off, looking around as if trying to measure the space against what he had expected. I followed his gaze briefly. It was designed to be comfortable, I said. Functionality matters as much as appearance. My aunt watched me as I spoke, not interrupting, but not disengaging either. She waited until the conversation thinned just enough. You mentioned earlier that you made decisions based on what you believed was appropriate, she said, her tone still calm, still controlled. I would like to understand that better. I met her eyes. It is straightforward, I replied. I evaluate what is being presented, and I respond accordingly. She nodded slowly. And in this case, she asked. I let the question settle. The ocean moved steadily behind her, the light reflecting across the water and into the glass doors behind me. In this case, I said, I allowed the plan to proceed as it was designed. She held my gaze, waiting for more. When none came, she continued. You could have clarified things earlier, she said. Not an accusation. But closer to one now. I could have, I agreed. But that would have changed the structure of the decision. She leaned slightly against the railing, considering that. And you chose not to, she said. I chose to observe, I replied. A brief silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Just precise. My aunt's expression shifted again, not outwardly, but in the way her focus narrowed. You wanted to see how things would unfold, she said. I inclined my head. Yes. She exhaled softly, a small release of tension. And now, she asked. Now I understand the full picture, I said. She looked at me for a moment longer, then glanced toward the others, who were listening without appearing to listen. I did not intend for your children to feel excluded, she said. The sentence was placed carefully. Deliberately. I did not respond immediately. I let the words exist on their own. Then I spoke. Intent does not change outcome, I said calmly. Her eyes returned to mine. No, she said quietly. It does not. Another pause. The staff began setting the table behind us, movements efficient, unobtrusive. The structure of the evening was already in motion. My aunt straightened slightly, adjusting her posture as if resetting her position within the conversation. If circumstances were different, she said, I would have made a different decision. I considered that. Circumstances are always different depending on perspective, I replied. She studied my expression, searching again for something that would allow her to reframe the situation. Are you suggesting that I misjudged the situation? She asked. The question was direct now. Clear. I met her gaze without shifting. I am suggesting that you made a decision with incomplete information, I said. She did not look away this time. And now that I have the complete information? She asked. The ocean moved behind her, steady, unchanged. I leaned back slightly in my chair. Now you have the opportunity to adjust, I said. The words settled between us. Not heavy. Not sharp. Just exact. Around us, the others remained quiet, the weight of the conversation understood even without being fully acknowledged. My aunt held my gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once, slowly. I see, she said. And this time, the word meant something different. The rest of the afternoon unfolded with a precision that no one had planned but everyone could feel. The table was set with quiet efficiency, each plate placed exactly where it belonged, each glass aligned in a way that suggested intention rather than decoration. My family moved through the space more carefully now, as if the house itself had shifted from something they were using into something they were being observed within. I did not need to say anything for that to happen. It had already begun. My aunt remained composed, but she spoke less. When she did, her words were measured, chosen with more care than before. "This is a beautiful setting for dinner," she said at one point, her gaze moving across the table, then briefly toward me. I inclined my head slightly. "It was designed for gatherings," I replied. She nodded. "It shows." The chef appeared shortly after, introducing the menu with a calm, practiced tone. Courses were described, timing explained, preferences confirmed. When he finished, he turned slightly toward me. "If there are any adjustments you would like made, Ms. Monroe, I can accommodate them." My aunt noticed that. She did not interrupt, but her attention sharpened again, the same way it had inside the house. I looked at the chef. "Everything is fine as it is," I said. "Thank you." He inclined his head and stepped away. Dinner began. Conversations returned, slowly at first, then with more consistency, though never quite reaching the ease they had carried before. My cousin asked about the property, about how long I had owned it, about whether I planned to expand my portfolio. I answered directly, without embellishment. "I acquired it 3 years ago," I said. "It meets specific criteria I prioritize." He nodded, impressed in the way people are when they realize they have underestimated something. My aunt listened without interrupting, her posture steady, her expression neutral. Halfway through the second course, she set her glass down and spoke again. "Tige," she said, her tone calm, "I have been thinking about what you said earlier." I looked at her. "About decisions," she continued. "And information." I waited. She held my gaze. "If I had known the full context," she said, "I would have approached things differently." The statement was clear. Not defensive. Not entirely apologetic. But deliberate. I let the words settle before responding. "Information changes outcomes," I said. "It always does." She nodded once. "Then I would like to correct that," she said. "If possible." The table quieted again, not abruptly, but enough. My cousin looked down at his plate. Someone else shifted in their seat. The ocean moved steadily in the background, the sound consistent, grounding. I considered her words carefully. "What would you like to correct?" I asked. She did not hesitate this time. "Your children should have been included," she said. "That was an oversight." Oversight. The word was placed carefully, but it did not carry the same weight as the decision it was meant to soften. I held her gaze. "It was a decision," I said. She accepted that with a small nod. "Yes," she replied. "It was." Another pause. Then she continued, more quietly now. "And I would like to extend an invitation for them to join us. If that is something you would consider." I did not answer immediately. I reached for my glass, took a small sip, and set it back down. The motion gave the moment space. "The trip is already underway," I said. "Yes," she agreed. "But arrangements can be adjusted." Adjusted. I looked at her, then briefly at the others, then back at her. "Earlier," I said, "you mentioned practicality. Cost. Group dynamics." She nodded slowly. I did. "Have those factors changed?" I asked. She held my gaze, understanding the structure of the question. "No," she said. "But my understanding of the situation has." I let the sentence settle. Then I spoke. "Understanding often comes after decisions have already revealed their impact," I said. She did not look away. I am aware of that, she replied. The air between us remained steady. Not tense. Not soft. Just exact. My aunt straightened slightly, as if preparing to say something further, then paused, choosing not to. Instead, she inclined her head once. I appreciate you allowing this conversation, she said. Of course, I replied. Dinner continued after that, but the tone had shifted again. Not back to what it was before. Not forward into something else entirely. Just different. More aware. More measured. And beneath it all, something unresolved remained, quiet but present, waiting for the moment it would no longer be contained. The night settled slowly over the house, the kind of quiet that does not come from comfort but from awareness. Conversations had thinned, voices lowered, and the space between words carried more meaning than the words themselves. My family moved through the evening carefully, as if each step required permission they had not known they needed before. I remained at the table for a while after the final course was cleared, watching the reflection of the lights against the glass, the ocean beyond it steady and unchanged. My aunt approached again, not with the same certainty she had carried at the beginning, but with something more measured, more deliberate. Tige, she said softly, stopping just across from me, I would like to speak with you. I looked up at her. Of course, I replied. She hesitated for a moment, then sat down, folding her hands lightly in front of her. The same gesture. But not the same position. I have been considering everything, she said. Not just today. The entire situation. I did not interrupt. She met my eyes, holding them with a steadiness that had changed from control to intent. I made a decision based on what I believed was appropriate, she continued. And I understand now that it reflected more than practicality. I let the words settle before responding. Decisions often do, I said. She nodded once. Yes, she said quietly. They reveal priorities. There was no defensiveness in her voice now. Just acknowledgement. Your children, she continued, should not have been treated as an inconvenience. That was not a matter of cost. It was a matter of judgment. I held her gaze. It was, I said. She exhaled softly, a controlled release. I cannot change what was already done, she said. But I can be clear about what I recognize now. I did not respond immediately. I let the silence exist, the same way I had allowed every moment to unfold without interruption. Finally, I spoke. Clarity comes after impact, I said. Not before. She accepted that without hesitation. I understand. Another pause. The ocean moved in the background, the sound steady, grounding everything in something that did not shift with perspective. I would like to make it right, she said. Not just for appearance. But in substance. I looked at her for a moment, then leaned back slightly in my chair. What does that look like to you? I asked. She did not rush her answer. It means including your children fully, she said. Not as an adjustment. Not as an afterthought. But as part of the family. The words were placed carefully, but they carried more weight now because they were not being used to justify something. They were being used to correct it. I considered them, then nodded once. That is a different standard, I said. Yes, she replied. It is. The air between us remained steady. No tension. No release. Just clarity. I stood then, moving toward the glass doors that opened to the deck. She remained seated, watching, not following this time. Outside, the night had settled completely. The horizon was no longer visible, only the sound of the water and the reflection of light across its surface. I rested my hand lightly on the doorframe, then turned back toward her. You said earlier that circumstances had changed, I said. She nodded. They have. I held her gaze for a moment longer. They have not, I said calmly. Only your understanding has. She did not respond right away. She let the words settle, the same way I had let her settle before. Then she inclined her head once, slowly. "You are right," she said. I stepped out onto the deck, the air cool, the sound of the ocean steady, and for the first time that evening, there was no need to say anything further. Because some things are not corrected by invitation or apology. They are corrected by whether the next decision is made differently. And that is something no one else can decide for you.